Well, hello, everyone. Wow. Sorry, I'm like, whoa. I'm looking at my hair right now. It's kind of crazy. I'm just gonna spruce myself up a bit. Sorry, I look like I just woke up. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Hot Topics. My name is Gabrielle, and if you're unfamiliar with the show, this is the show where we like to talk that real talk. We like to talk that real talk about a variety of topics. We tend to focus on things in education, entrepreneurship, health. We tend to focus on a lot of different topics, but the whole premise is that whatever topic that we decide, we like to look at it from an educational point of view. And today I am excited about this episode because, as you know, we like to have wow, I just woke up, you guys. I am excited about today because we have a repeat topic. As you already know, we like to repeat topics. We like to bring them back. We like to look at multiple perspectives. And today we are bringing this topic back, you guys. And the topic that we are bringing back is, what is a podcast? So, this is what is a podcast part two, right? So, we're going to continue this discussion about what is a podcast, why is it so popular? Why get into it? It seems like it's taken over the world. I don't know. We're gonna get into that discussion more, and I look forward to exploring this a little bit. So, what is a podcast part two? That is the topic for today, and I have a fabulous guest who is going to take that hot seat, and she is going to help me explore this topic. Her name is, I just want to make sure I say her name right, Danielle Meadows-Stinnett, and I look forward to hearing more from her. So I'm just going to get right into it. So, who is Danielle Meadows-Stinnett? Let me tell you who she is. So, Danielle is the owner of Octane Design Studios, a 12-year-old branding and identity firm based in the heart of the Bluegrass. Danielle is a podcaster, wife, mama of four, and lover of rustic cuisine, chai, cosplay, Star Trek's Picard, and live MMA. With over 13 years of marketing and multimedia agency experience, Danielle is a grassroots developer and curator, helping brand and launch over 100 local businesses across America, two-thirds of which are in Kentucky. Mm. Danielle is an advocate of non traditional education, leading online meetups and workshops for do it yourself marketing. Her latest education platform, Q1 Essentials, is ooh, is the online membership of 10 plus mini courses to level up your digital marketing each year within the first business quarter of the year. In 2021, Danielle launched Kentucky Creatives, which is a second business, an all new Kentucky based membership community comprised of bloggers, photographers, copywriters, podcasters, and more to help connect small businesses with influencers for their brands. And lastly, as much as Danielle is passionate about providing creative services, she strives to be more than just the graphics she creates. Over the years, her hashtag, more than graphics, has become more than just a marketing slogan. It's become a life principle for herself that she executes through storytelling and life chronicle as producer and co host of the hashtag More Than Graphics podcast. So, as I'm reading this bio, so, for you guys, you're listening to this episode, I encourage you to, why not, use that hashtag, hashtag more than graphics. So if you're those on Twitter, um, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are. So if you like this episode, use that graphic hashtag more than graphics. So use that hashtag, you guys. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring her to the stage. Hi, Danielle. How you doing today?
Hello. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on this fabulous morning. So, let's get right to it. We're continuing the conversation of what is a podcast. I'm curious about this whole podcasting business. So if you could just um, remind people, let's start off with a simple question: What is it? What is a podcast?
A podcast, in my view and my expertise, is literally an audio or visual representation of storytelling. So, depending if you're podcasting for a business or you're podcasting for yourself, there's some element of life chronicling that you're doing, specifically when you want to put on or produce a podcast. So, it really is just sharing thoughts, a collection of thoughts and ideas.
So, how do we share those thoughts and ideas? Tell us about the various platforms that are out there.
Oh, there's so many. There's so many platforms to discuss. So, depending on where you are and what you're comfortable doing, really what I encourage people to do when they even want to start or thinking about starting a podcast is to put it down on paper or at least type it out. Have a plan. So, we talk about podcasting platforms. There's so many different ways that you could go. There's, things like Buzzsprout and Anchor and things along those lines. There's Libsyn. There's all kinds of really cool places that you could host your platform. But really, before you even get to that point, we really encourage people to have a game plan to get started.
So, how you're saying to plan out your podcast, to plan out those ideas before launching anything.
Absolutely. I think it's really important that, again, not only do you have the bells and whistles and the pretty things, the graphics are only one area of supplementation for your podcast, but to have an actually thought out, planned out idea. What would each episode sound like? What would it look like? What topics do you want to discuss? Is your episode going to be capped off at maybe 30 minutes at a time? More than 47% of podcasts are well within the 30 to 45-minute range, which is pretty active listening for a lot of people who are just diving into podcasts. Things along those lines are really important to consider as you begin your own podcast.
So let's talk about the logistics a little bit. So, um, how how long should a podcast be? There's how well I don't want to let me choose my words. How long should a podcast be? Thinking about like the listeners and or the viewers if they're online. How long? What is a typical? Okay, so there's two questions. So question one, how long is a typical podcast? Question two, how long should a podcast be?
So this really depends on your genre. Okay, so when we talk about genres, yes, there are genres just like movies. There's genres for podcasts. So you may want to think about the area that you're wanting to go in, and the second part to that is also understanding your format and your layout. There's, again, just like genres, there's other different types of podcast layouts that you can follow. Everything from an interviewee process, like we are currently, to more of a storytelling process, kind of like true crime podcasts that you hear, to more informational and factual information, which is more of a solo component, where you're talking for X amount of time. It really just depends, again, on the format and the genre that you want to go into. Now, I'll give an example. If you're going into true crime, there's a lot of extra language that's involved with that. So podcasts typically range anywhere from between 45 minutes to an hour. in regards to that type of format, because more than one person is speaking, and we also need to share all the cool information that's a part of that process. So that takes a little bit longer. But say, for instance, you're doing an interview like this, and it's just informational or casual. And most of those interviews can range anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. The average listener is looking for a range of 30 to 45. We really try to stick closer to the 30-minute if we can, just because it allows the reader to be more engaged and wanting to follow the next episode. So, again, the longer that a person is listening, the better your listening rate or your listenership will be. I believe I answered both questions.
Okay. So what what about equipment? What equipment is needed for a podcast?
I love this question because a lot of people kind of have this misconception that they need to have like $200 or $300 mics. We need to have a channel mixer. We have to have all these extra gadgetries, and they're nice. Do not get me wrong. I think those, as you grow in your listenership and grow yourself professionally into that direction, you can definitely use those types of equipment. But a lot of people just start out with earbuds and their phone recorder. A lot of people start out their podcasts in a more mobile way. And I think that works for a couple of different reasons. One, the likability, right? The relatedness between someone who's listening and someone who's creating. That is kind of a cool connection that a lot of people have with their dedicated podcast host, however they're listening. The other part of that is just understanding that we all have to start somewhere. And 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be with fancy things. Sometimes it can be as simple as paper and pencil. It can be as simple as just having, again, those earbuds connected to the phone with a little script that maybe you have out on your computer or out on some sort of notebook, pen and paper. Other times, this could be a little bit more elaborate, right? Maybe there's a teleprompter involved. Maybe you're actually recording these in a studio where you actually have a podcast producer edit and balance out the audio. So there's just a lot of options that you can start with, but start from humble beginnings. Start with the basics. The story, the content is more important than the stuff.
Hmm. So now I'm wondering how how are podcasts beneficial for a small business owner, or people who have small businesses, big businesses? How are podcasts beneficial for them? Are they beneficial to them?
I definitely think that small business podcasting is an untapped market. It's definitely growing exponentially now because people are recognizing that it is an untapped area. But so many different small businesses can take advantage of podcasting, whether it's sharing, for example, if it was a restaurant, bringing on people to try food while having a conversation about something that matters to them. Maybe if it's a small business that's doing some sort of service, maybe using each episode to talk about in more detail what that service is, why it's important, and also a kind of something to kind of think about too is incorporating some element of giving back on each podcast episode. As a small business, we always feel like sometimes we, are not maybe not as giving enough or give too much. I definitely think that it's important for us to find some element of giving back, whether that's an extra tidbit of information or a place that they can go to, a vendor of some sort. So, small businesses, you kind of the world is your oyster right now in regards to podcasting. Definitely try it out.
So now your podcast is about women in technology. So can you talk more about that?
Yes. So the More Than Graphics podcast is literally kind of a virtual safe space for women in tech and women creatives. It literally is a place where we can come and be our natural selves. A lot of times we feel like as introverted women, we often kind of feel like we have to be our 9 to 5. And sometimes that 9 to 5 carries into other areas of our lives. So this is our way to kind of not be who we are, labeled to be as our 9 to 5 job, to be something bigger and better than ourselves, and to strive to be better than what we were yesterday.
Hmm. So how where do you where do you find your viewers? I guess that should be a question I should ask as well. Is how do you where do you find your audience? Where do you grow your audience? How do you increase viewership?
So for me, for the More Than Graphics podcast, it's really just about being a part of community, right? We talk about specifically in our podcast, we talk about finding our tribe and what our tribe looks like. So a big part of what I like to encourage people to do is find your tribe. Find your tribe outside of your normal listenership. Go into groups, hang out on Facebook, use social if you want to, but physically show up to places too. More than likely, you're going to find people who are more in tune with the things that you care about and the things that you feel like would be a good fit for your show. And people are naturally attracted to that and want to follow you.
Hmm. Okay, so that's a tidbit there, right? So for people looking to grow their audience, start off with social media, get the word out about it. You could even start off with your friends, ask them to follow you, and then have them share. And then you even said, go the extra mile and go places and promote. Um, so what kinds of places? What kinds of places can you promote a podcast?
There's a lot of online groups that you can be a part of. I'm a part of quite a few. I like being able to be versatile, and when I say versatile, I do mean like not being in my typical fishbowl. I like being able to go out. A lot of us in podcasting, we feel the almost a little bit of the opposite, but the business part of marketing ourselves kind of forces us out of the fishbowl in a lot of ways. But I think it's really important for people to find again groups and people. I belong to several on Facebook. There's things outside of Facebook, like the podcasters, women podcasters of color podcast group. Women of Color Podcasters Group. Had to think about it for a second. That's a great opportunity for women, specifically women of color, if they're interested in starting a podcast. I absolutely love being a part of She Podcast. She Podcast Live comes out in October. I was fortunate to speak at She Podcast Live last year. That was such an opportunity for me to reach tons of other women that I would never have touched before, just by attending those type of podcast conferences.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so let's talk about your podcasting journey. So, how long have you been a podcaster? What got you into it? All that jazz.
So this is our fourth season of the More Than Graphics podcast. So I've been doing being in front of the camera, being in front of the mic for 4 years now. But I've been podcast editing a little bit beyond that. Knowing what things to take out, to put in, how to edit, how to do all the fancy things. Being an editor has really taught me how much I appreciate the medium of podcasting, but even more so how much more fun it can be to be able to be in front of that as well. So I absolutely love my podcasting journey, and I really inspire and encourage other women to do the same if they're interested.
So, what are the ways that people can listen to a podcast? So I'm going to flip it a little bit. What are the ways that people can hear a podcast?
Sure. So obviously the internet is our best friend. We absolutely love, there's so many different mediums that you can listen to a podcast on, everything from Spotify to Apple Podcasts to Google Podcasts to Pandora, iHeartRadio. I mean, podcasts are everywhere at this point. I've listened to podcasts in the earlier days, streaming off the internet when it was buffering every 25 seconds or every 3 minutes, it would stop to buffer. Definitely telling my age there, but podcasting has come such a long way in steps of advertising, in steps of being in the moment. A lot of times podcasts were done like, 2 weeks at a time and things were kind of old. Now we're in a cycle, in a new cycle, and in this new technological age where things are turned over within hours, within a day. And so we're able to really be a voice for a lot of people and communities and represent a lot of people and communities in a much quicker turnaround than the traditional media of TV and radio. So I think it's really cool that podcasting is now taking more of the front seat. as we grow more into this technological age.
So now I'm wondering if you think that podcasting will replace television or replace the radio or um, replace traditional media.
I definitely think in terms of traditional media, we're almost kind of neck and neck. I feel like a lot of people, depending on again, generations are different. My generation, millennials, we are in a place where we're pushing that bar of not using as traditional news outlets and mediums, and leaning on more of the independent podcast styling mediums for our entertainment and our news. For the older generations, older than ourselves, obviously traditional media was more of the forefront. That was more so of the what we leaned on at that time to provide us reliable information. So I do feel like podcasting in its own realm outside of entertainment, but on the news factor, is definitely becoming more of a takeover moment. The younger generations that we go down.
Hmm. So when you say takeover, what do you mean?
I mean, as far as people who want to automatically find a source of news or a source of information, we lean more so on the idea of leaning on a podcast potentially to give us that information versus traditional media such as radio or television.
Hmm. So now I'm wondering if you think podcasting will replace talk shows, because how you and I are talking right now. Some people, I mean, there's people that are solo and it's just them talking for 30 minutes, but then there's also the interview style where there's
Mhm.
a guest. So I'm wondering if, it'll replace talk shows in the sense that maybe not replace, but maybe there is more competition for talk shows.
We're already seeing it a lot right now in the traditional news outlets. We're seeing big names like, let's say, the Red Table right now, Red Table Talk. That's huge. It was just done originally as a series on Facebook and immediately crossed over to podcast because people wanted more of the medium. Shows like with Trevor Noah. I mean, when you hear his voice, you automatically know who he is. So he's really identifiable. So when he does his show on Comedy Central, it crosses right over into podcasting. We're starting to see this really kind of big influx of mediums who are more hip to the wise. They're realizing they could reach a different base of people if they just change the medium. So while they're still a conglomerate in some areas visually, they're taking those pieces and turning them into audio pieces and putting that forth on the podcasting platforms.
Right, and I'm glad you brought up Trevor Noah because I'm also seeing that as well. And now that podcasting is blowing up, I'm seeing a lot of the big names transition into podcasting. So
Mhm.
like late night with no the Late Show with Stephen Colbert,
Yes.
podcast, and Conan O'Brien. He actually left his show.
Mhm.
No, I think he was podcasting while he was doing his show, but then he left his show and just is doing his podcasting full time.
Yes.
I mean, Trevor Noah, The Daily Show. So it seems like um, these big names, they're transitioning into podcasting.
I completely agree, and it's a good telltale sign, right? So while they're tapping into both markets, they're actually kind of casting some nets, if you will. They're fishing. They're fishing for the right type of audience, and they're fishing for the right type of listenership. Either or still supplies the root, right? Either or still feeds the tree. But it's the fact that they're still casting out roots, they're casting out nets just to fish and figure out, what works best for their audience is really smart and very visual marketing.
So is it just that they're trying to get in touch with them kids, or is it is it just for them to reach out to audience that is more, I don't want to say close to their age, but is it just another attempt to tap into the younger 18 to 24 market?
Absolutely. I think they have to think about their longevity as any podcast should. So finding a way to not only address their current market, but newer markets is really important. How to address their current audience while embellishing and embracing a newer audience. This is the transition of podcasting and the beauty of podcasting, because we can transition a lot easier in this medium than we could in television or radio.
Mm, interesting, interesting. So now, what about the money that's involved? I keep hearing that it's a $1 billion industry. It's a $1 billion industry. So, how do I tap into that? I'm trying to get rich. How do I tap into that money?
There's so many different ways to go about that. Obviously, one of the more popular mediums right now is memberships. Creating some sort of membership to have access to more detailed, maybe detailed info, podcasts, episodes. Maybe it's just merch or swag or something along those lines. But the whole purpose of membership is to give more intimate access from the listener to the host. And so I think it's really cool that people are taking more advantage of those opportunities by creating memberships. For a lot of podcasts, they tier it up. They at least provide 2 to 3 tiers of membership so that people can have a choice or an option. I like the idea of kind of creating some exclusivity around the brand of the podcast. I really think that's a smart idea, just so that you have a kind of an inner circle, but then you have your general audience as well. And there's so many different ways that you can create memberships. A lot of people use Patreon. It's very popular. Buy Me a Coffee is super fun. We've done, let's see, membership. There's actual one called membership, literally. And it's really cool. I like that. There's just so many different ways that you can create a membership, but those are just some of a few platforms that we've used in the past.
Hmm. So going back to your podcast, what just to go into your life a little bit. So what made you decide to get into podcasting as opposed to pursuing some other avenue?
I loved podcasting because it allowed me to share stories. And I think that was really the heart of it for me. I come from a background of a lot of storytelling. I wanted to be like the next Black Katie Couric as a journalism major in college. I was a technical theater major at Western Kentucky University. Shout out Hilltoppers. And I really had a great time sharing stories. But then I kind of got more involved with wanting to design what those stories look like. So while I pivoted careers and went into graphic design, I still had this thirst for sharing those stories. And so podcasting was a way for me to do that. And as I grew my business, Octane Design Studios, it really became more of a deeper purpose for me to be, again, more than more than graphics. So, in being more than graphics, I wanted to showcase other women who were being more than their dot, 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 more than their blank. And that became more of a inner propeller for me to strive to share those stories more often through podcasting.
Hmm. So why not? Because you mentioned journalism, why not become a journalist and get on those big wig TV shows like NBC or CBS or things like that? Why not go that route?
Definitely still trying. Definitely still trying on that front. But I think for me, it's just more about the humble purpose, right? So when we walk into podcasting, a lot of people sometimes do it for the money. A lot of people do it for the fame. But I do it for the purpose of just being able to honorably share someone else's testimony, wisdom, life experiences to help level up and benefit another person behind them. And so for me, I love the opportunity of being on some sort of larger platform of some sort, but really there's just humble honor in just being able to share it for me. But for many of us out there, there's women out there who want to also share that story and make a little change. And there's no harm, no foul in any of that. So I think it's really important to have that sense of purpose of what you really want to do and hone in on that the best way you can.
Hmm. So now, I my thinking with podcasting is that I I think it's growing in popularity. Well, one of the ways it is because of 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 the technology involved in making a podcast, and that it's easy for people to use.
Hmm.
So like I'm using StreamYard right now, and all you need is all you need is a camera and a microphone and a computer,
Hmm.
or for people on Anchor or Buzzsprout, um, again, you just need a microphone and a computer. Or for people on YouTube, again, you just need a webcam and a YouTube account. So I think because it's so easy to make shows like this is because of the technology is easy to use. So I'm wondering what do you think of that?
As a techie, this is my jam. So I feel very encouraged, inspired even by the way that technology has really advanced for us to access information. So I love being able to showcase that. I'll give you a cool tidbit from that. Years ago, when the last season of Game of Thrones was being revealed, we actually did a live show on YouTube called Countdown to Thrones, and it was like a multicast program that we did live on YouTube. It was done in the moment. We went from playing cool infomercials or commercials or spoofs that people had done already on YouTube. We interchanged that between interviews of people live on site with us physically at a local premiere of the first episode of season 8 of Game of Thrones. We even had a live Thrones chair. Like the chair was literally in the room. People could come and take photos in the chair. We were sharing live in the moment predictions from people in regards to what they thought was going to happen with so many of the beloved characters of the show. And so that was a huge deal. As a nerd, first I'm like total like fangirling all the things. But on the other side of that, the idea that I could take something that was in front of me, something that was recorded from across the world, was something that was happening weeks before, and putting them all together in one huge piece to showcase to other people across the world who were just as passionate about being a geek and understanding the Game of Thrones culture was super unique. So that's just one way that I know that that was years ago when that was released. And here we are now with the advancement of technology. So I'm very optimistic about the future of where podcasting and technology is heading.
Mm, right, and also with Zoom, I'm not sure people like heard of Zoom before the pandemic, but Zoom just blew up during the pandemic, and
Hmm.
people were locked in their homes and couldn't really go anywhere.
Hmm.
So with things like Zoom and Skype, well, I don't know about Skype, but particularly with Zoom,
Hmm.
that multiple people can come on and you can stream to social media. I think again it the technology made it possible for people to connect with each other, um, and even those talk shows, that I talked about, Colbert and Conan. Um, of course, people were locked in their homes, so what did they have to do? They had to stream them online, right? Using
Hmm.
things like Zoom. So I think the technology allowed us to connect more with each other in ways that we never thought, and to connect together very easily.
I entirely agree, and I love the fact that you mentioned the Daily Show because at one point the Daily Show was being recorded solely by Trevor from his apartment, from his house during COVID, and I thought that was so uniquely cool because he again was showing that we're in this together. We're in this together as a group, all understanding that we all have to make sacrifices for the greater good right now. And in that moment, so many people connected and vibe with that. So not only was he being funny and entertaining because of what was happening, and he was still being able to carry out and deliver all the goods from the Daily Show, but still at the same time, it was like kind of humble to know that we were seeing this from his living room, we were seeing this from his desk, his personal spaces. So again, that interconnectivity, that interconnection of relating to each other, that relatability between the person who's giving the information and the person who's receiving the information. When that line becomes thinner and thinner, I think that's where your most listenership is going to grow.
So let's talk about the future. So where do you see podcasting in 5 years?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think we could probably see a lot more video podcasts. I think that's definitely exponentially going to grow, especially with YouTube growing its platform for showcasing more video podcasts. We're just going to see that grow and be like a whole nother separate thing. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see where apps like Clubhouse and Twitter Spaces and now LinkedIn Spaces are going to go, as we start seeing more of these social media platforms create their own auditable channels, and audible platforms to grow upon their own current platforms. So I'm excited to see where that goes in 5 years.
Mm. All right, all right, all right. Um, so would you recommend is let me well I'll flip it like this. Who do you think podcasting will not work for?
Hmm. I think, I guess the timid, to be really honest. If you're a very, very timid person and you know for sure like this makes you more anxious than excited, this is probably not the space for you. If you are comfortable talking and being passionate about the things that you're passionate about in front of people or on a microphone, this is definitely more for you. If you are a woman and you are trying very hard to, advocate for something or advocate for yourself, I do feel like women in podcasting is definitely going to be taking a front seat in the near future. So that is something to consider if you're a woman out there starting a podcast or wanting to start one. I think in a lot of ways, obviously, men have dominated this industry forever. And I definitely think over the next maybe 10 years, we'll start seeing more of a balance shift between the amount of women leading podcasts and the amount of men leading podcasts.
Mm, interesting that you brought up gender because now I'm going to bring up race. Okay, so what do you think about um, the different ethnicities that are um, getting on podcasting now, or do you, do you think podcasting is helping with the black voice or the Asian voice or the Hispanic voice? Like, is podcasting helping people of color?
um Exponentially so. I want to just really quickly quote the Black Podcast Listener Report that came out in 2021, the November 2021, specifically talks about how 77% of the of total Black populations are familiar with the term podcasting. Now, back in the day, we were making the jokes about, whether such and such could come to the cookout and things along those lines. That's still a thing. I think it's really important now that barrier is becoming thinner and thinner. Now we have 55 plus of a majority of our large population of our elderly is better understanding of the word podcasting. They may not completely 110% get it, but they understand that's an element of audio that they can share more so than just video. I think it's also really important that we look at the 36% of Black population that listen monthly to a podcast. I think that's super important. Also from the Black Listener Report, I think it's really important that we focus on that because that's the identification and kind of the projection that we see a lot more people of color going. We're going more to a monthly feel. We're not just going to every week. It's not required that much anymore. We're going back to at least a monthly style minimum for people who are listening to podcasts of color, specifically Black ones. And then lastly, 26% are listening weekly, and I see that number obviously growing. But I do think it's really important for podcasts of color. We are an untapped market. We have not fully pushed the envelope of the ability that what we could do within this realm. So I'm happy to contribute toward that cause.
Hmm. And even, I'm just thinking with Black people and sharing information that, because of social media, because of technology, that, us Black folk, can share information with each other, easily. So
Mhm.
what do you think about that?
This is our generation of access. That's what this comes down to. This comes down to our generation of literally telling other people of color, yes, we can. It's possible, it's doable. So I'm actually really excited to see what this next generation behind us eventually does. I'm really excited to see where this goes.
All right, awesome, awesome. All right, so I know we're having a lot of fun, but let's start to wind things down. So, do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
I do. As a gamer, someone who's involved in the culture of things right now, I encourage people to um, not necessarily stay in their lane, but embellish and then grow out of their lane. But I also encourage people to kind of understand that life is more like Tetris and less like Mario. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're going about life, trying to figure out what direction to go in.
I'm sorry for the non gamers. What did you mean by that?
Ah, yes, I was waiting for that. So, for the non-gamers, if people don't know what Tetris and Mario is, I'm really referring to Super Mario Brothers or Mario Brothers original video games. I'm a retro gamer, so there's a lot of uh, game rules that I want to kind of define for a second. So, Super Mario Brothers, it's all about getting to the end of the game. It's all about getting to racing as fast as you can, getting the obstacles out of the way, but getting to the end. Tetris is a little bit more defined, it's a little bit more technical. It's about moving the pieces around so that they fit before they stack upon each other and you end the game. So, when I say that life is more like Tetris and less like Mario, it's not about just rushing to get to the goal. It's about creating the right type of foundation for yourself so that you can see yourself grow.
All right, fabulous, fabulous. All right, Danielle, thank you so much for joining me today. All right, you guys. So Danielle is all over, right? She has a few businesses. Um, so definitely check her out on social media. She is on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. So definitely check her out. She has a podcast. She has two websites. So definitely check all of that information out, which of course we will provide to you in the description. So definitely check her out. So Danielle, do you mind telling us about your businesses?
Sure. So again, I run Octane Design Studios, is a 12-year-old digital marketing firm based in the heart of the Bluegrass. We do a lot of brand strategy, graphic design, web development, but we also do podcast editing and podcast branding services. So if you're interested in starting a podcast of any kind, we definitely encourage you to check us out at lexoctane.com. The other side of that, if you're a Kentuckian or somewhere in the Kentucky area, we have an amazing local influencer group called Kentucky Creatives. And so we really encourage people to come check us out if you're into the creative zone. That includes blogging, podcasting. If you're an illustrator, anything along those lines in the creative fields, we encourage you to check out that group on Facebook at Kentucky Creatives.
Great, great, great. So you guys heard it yourself. So if you're looking for those services for yourself, reach out. So we got one website here, www.lexoctane.com.
You got it.
And website number two is www.kentuckycreatives.com.
Mhm.
And she has a podcast, www.mtgthepodcast.com. So definitely go to all them sites and check her out on her social media. Follow her, send her a message. Definitely give her that support. All right, Danielle, thank you again for joining me. This was a fabulous conversation.
Thank you. I enjoyed this as well.
Awesome, awesome. All righty, so I'm going to remove you now, and it is just you and me, guys. So let me get my. Oh, whoa! What just happened? Okay, sorry, I just had a freak moment. Anyway, so sorry. Give me a second. Okay, I just had a weird moment. Okay, there I am. There we are. Okay. All right, you guys. So we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, wherever you are feeling my aura right now, whatever platform that you are feeling my aura, please check out our platform for other videos and clips. And don't forget to subscribe. And while you're at it, let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. I would love to hear your thoughts about this episode. And as a reminder, this web series is a production of my company, A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our tutoring company, the services that we offer, if you're looking for tutoring services for yourself or for your children, please reach out to us. Our website is www.stepaheadtutoringservices.com. You can also follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So we're in a lot of different places. So definitely check us out on social media. So that information is also in the description as well. And I want to encourage you to reach out to us because we have a special coupon going on right now. If you mention that you heard about us from Hot Topics, we'll give you 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. That's right. I'm going to repeat that again. If you let us know that you heard about us from Hot Topics, we will give you 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. So that's an incentive for you to get them tutoring services, especially now that summer is upon us. So definitely get that tutoring, especially now during the summer. And I will also want to encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. You will receive a special promotions, discounts, offers, everything that is a step ahead tutoring. So I encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list as well. That information again is in the description. And for our online viewers, you are seeing it right now at the bottom of your screen. All right, so I'm going to share this final message before we officially close.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this web series, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Send your donation by Cash App to $ASATS2013, by PayPal or Venmo to at ASATS2013, or by Zelle to success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. For our Facebook Live viewers, you can also send us a star. Your support means a lot to us. Please note, we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
All right, all right, all right. All right, you guys. So we are done. Thank you so much for joining me this episode. I look forward to seeing you at the next. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Thank you again. And now I am signing off. Bye.